And now for the continuation of our special coverage, a live broadcast from New York City. I'm handing you over now to consulting editor, India Today Group, joined by special guest Rajdeep Sardesai.
Silence, please.
Hello and welcome to this special that's coming to you from a rain-swept morning here in New York. It's 9 o'clock in New Delhi, but it's just about 11:30 here in New York, and it's been a rainy morning. Remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has left for New York. He's now en route to Frankfurt, where he will spend the night and then come here to the Big Apple tomorrow for his much-awaited visit, his first visit here in over a decade. With me, special guests. We are here at the top of the Dream Hotel in the heart of Manhattan. Shashi Tharoor, Congress MP and someone who knows New York like the back of his hand, spent as many as 18 years here in the United Nations, not too far away from this spot. Siddharth Singh of the Bharatiya Janata Party. They are both part of India Today Roundtable Conclave that will take place tomorrow ahead of Mr. Modi's visit to the Big Apple. Also with me, Rahul Kawal, our managing editor. He's at the best spot. He's there in Times Square, where there will be a lot of action over the next few days, including Mr. Modi speaking at Madison Square Gardens on Sunday. But today was a day when Narendra Modi, just ahead of his visit to New York, decided that he would unveil his vision for Indian business. Make in India was the slogan, as Mr. Modi called on Indian business leaders to change the definition of FDI. He said it should be first develop India. Listen in to Narendra Modi as the who's who of Indian business spoke out at the Make in India summit.
Make in India. Make in India. Make in India. Make in India. Make in India.
It was Prime Minister Modi's mega manufacturing pitch, and the people who matter didn't disappoint. As the who's who of Indian business filled the 1,250 capacity Gyan Bhavan auditorium to the brim, the Prime Minister was overwhelmed with the response.
मैं सबसे पहले आपकी क्षमा मांगता हूं। मैं देख रहा हूं कि अनेक बिजनेस लीडर्स को आज इस सभागृह में बैठने के लिए जगह नहीं मिली है।
Create employment for the over 12 million.
India Inc. pledged solidarity with Narendra Modi's passionate plea to make India a manufacturing hub. The captains of Indian industry spelling out their roadmap.
We are greatly encouraged that under the leadership of our Prime Minister, the Make in India program is bringing together industry and government to craft this future. India is at a historic moment, and we have the opportunity to together catapult the country to a new orbit.
What strikes me the most about Make in India is typical to your style. Made is always in the past. Make is about the present.
We need to focus on the ease of doing business. That is making rules, regulations, and decision-making simple, quick, and transparent. We will need to give our young people the right training so that they have skills for manufacturing.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
The mood was definitely upbeat, as the business honchos sensed a renewed conviction on the part of the government.
The PM's call exhorting India Incorporated to join Make in India mission met with an enthusiastic response from the luminaries of Indian industry. Industrialists especially lauded Prime Minister's FDI or First Develop India pitch. After all, restoring faith in captains of industry will go a long way in fulfilling Modi's dream of making India a manufacturing hub. With camera person Ashwini Hillen, Arthur Khan in Delhi for Headlines Today.
Okay, so Narendra Modi making his big Make in India pitch to make India a manufacturing hub just ahead of arriving here in New York. With me, of course, Shashi Tharoor and Siddharth Singh. What do you make of Make in India? Do you believe that Modi has struck just the right chord before he comes to America? This is what investors or businessmen want to hear. Your smile suggests that you're more skeptical.
No, look, I'm very happy if people actually do make it in India, because there's no question that some of our big business people, our big capitalists actually went off, as you know, and invested elsewhere in preference to investing in our own country. So Prime Minister Modi can persuade them that first develop India is indeed the right approach. That's all to the good of our country. So I'm not skeptical about that. I'm a little skeptical about whether it is, as you said, the right message when you're coming to New York to get foreigners to invest in India but say we won't invest anywhere else. I'm not sure that contradiction will play quite so well.
That's precisely it. You know, we're just not too far away from Wall Street. Will American investors, will American business, and Mr. Modi is meeting a number of American businessmen on this visit. Do you believe that they are out there with their checks, or India has a long way to go before convincing America that, you know, many Americans are going to Indonesia, going to Philippines. Why will they come to India? Is Mr. Modi's visit going to be enough?
Well, there's tremendous competition for investment resources, no question about that. We are facing a world in which many countries feel they have got a more conducive business environment to offer than we do. We do need to see action taken to make that story different for us. The BJP's position on FDI in retail has not helped. It has actually convinced a number of people in America and in the West that the climate is still not propitious, that the Swadeshi economists are still on top of the newly ruling party. So I think that there is an important sell that has to be done here to persuade investors that we are the right place to come under the rule of the BJP.
Siddharth Singh, you know, do you really expect Narendra Modi to have investors lining up with blank checks? Surely you need to do much more to convince American businessmen that they should invest in India. It's one thing to tell the Indian businessmen, stay on in India, first develop India, make FDI, first develop India. What about the American businessmen whom he's going to meet here over the next 72 hours?
Well, we have seen in the past various prime ministers coming to America, but the key thing is we have been doing G2G kind of thing. This is the first time the Prime Minister is coming and he's making it G2B. That is government to the business community. And therefore you see a line of CEOs who he's going to be interacting. You're saying
that the previous government was government to government. This is government to business. You're saying Narendra Modi's business is business. He's the good Gujarati, he knows how to deal with business.
Well, certainly he does. And therefore, like you said, a good Gujarati who understands business, he also understands the bottlenecks which the country is facing, and there are certain reforms which need to be done. There are certain other areas where you need to push the Indian businessmen also. There are certain legislations which need to be brought in, labor, land acquisition, all these things are, they are in the mind of the government, and I'm sure that we'll be working towards it so that the confidence with the investors, be it domestic or in outside
I take your point, because a large part of his speech today was how to facilitate business, how to make doing business in India easier. That's not going to happen overnight. I mean, you've been here in America. American businessmen are very hard-nosed. If they find it easier to do business in China, they'll go to China.
Absolutely.
I mean, do you believe that Mr. Modi, when he comes here in 24 hours from now, is really going to have to hard sell India, not just hard sell himself? There's a feeling that Mr. Modi is very good at hard selling himself. Is he going to be able to hard sell India as well?
No, the Prime Minister has always had the strength of being able to talk a good game. The problem is that whereas the Indian public may be willing to wait a while for results, American investors, as you say, will not produce their checkbooks until they actually see concrete changes on the ground. It's no longer going to be enough to say, we will do X, Y, and Z. They'll say, why haven't you done it? And when you've done it, come back to us. Siddhartha just said reform in labor laws, ease in doing business practices, other kinds of deregulation. But then no steps have been taken in the 5 months, in the 4 months they've been in power, to actually initiate action that they can point to. So again,
but he's communicating. At least Mr. Modi is communicating. You know, the Congress will have announced a new manufacturing policy, but it was never communicated. You've got a Prime Minister who's communicating. That's what he intends to do in New York. He's got 35 meetings scheduled in the space of 72 hours.
That's great. But he's also got to have concrete things to communicate, not just words.
Well, knowing Shashiji, he is one person who is always positive about doing things. He understands the climate here and the investment climate of the Americans. So I'm sure he would not like to comment, but there has been a phase in last few years India lost that momentum which was supposed to be seized for a variety of reasons. I'll not get into that. But the reality is that there is a vision, there is the Prime Minister who wants that manufacturing needs to be brought into India. It's just not the service sector. And to do manufacturing, it is important to do certain structural changes. There need to be brought reform. And certainly he understands when he goes to the Americans that, look, you come and I'll make things easier. But there is one thing, Razi.
It will be the other way, so that you make things easier, then they'll come in.
No, but no. I think we are missing one point. Modi ji's mandate, which he had got, it's a phenomenal mandate. The mandate is for development and reforms and great investment, bringing jobs to the country, and that's why he's got that mandate. And that mandate didn't come because he was speaking. The mandate came because he was a chief minister in Gujarat, where he delivered.
Okay, so you're saying what he did in Gujarat he's going to do for India. Before I toss to Rahul, I just want to get a sense, since you've worked intensely on foreign policy, has the time come when you come to New York or you come to Washington, it's increasingly about business. I mean, it's increasingly about being able to be seen. Your power, your foreign policy power today comes from your ability to attract investment. Do you believe that? The basis of power has changed from military power to economic power? Narendra Modi has perhaps understood that.
The weightage of economic issues in foreign policy has grown up enormously. But it cannot be and is not the be-all and end-all of our relationship with a country like the US or, for that matter, China. We must not be judging an important bilateral relationship purely in terms of a dollar sign at the bottom of the page. There are fundamental other interests, there are security interests, there are issues of foreign policy congruence and support on a whole host of issues in our region and globally, which go way beyond investments in business and economics alone. I'm one of those who's always argued we need to devote more attention to economics, to trade, to investment than we have in the past. But it cannot be to the exclusion of the traditional considerations as well.
Let me then go straight to Rahul, because Rahul, there at Times Square, I believe that Narendra Modi's groupies, if I may call that, or the Indian American community, the NRIs, the NRGs, the non-resident Gujaratis are already planning to really make this a weekend to remember. Particularly with Madison Square Gardens, where he's going to deliver that speech on Sunday. Give us a sense of the kind of preparations that are already on 24 hours before Mr. Modi arrives.
Rajdeep, this party is going to spill out of Madison Square Garden. India and Indians are going to be taking over Times Square, the most iconic square, the melting pot of the world, big screens around us, three of which will have Modi's speech being broadcast live. The Indian American community has been deeply conflicted about its Indian roots. They've always rued what could have been the India story. Suddenly, they have a prime minister they're looking up to. Modi's popularity in New York and New Jersey at this time is immense. Every person we've been meeting to from the Indian community who's in New York says he wants to be at the Madison Square Garden event. They're going crazy trying to get their hands on a ticket. Yesterday we went to Columbia University, and in the classroom of students I asked them how many are going. Only 3 didn't put their hands up, and Rajdeep, these are the 3 students who tried to get a ticket but couldn't. That's the level of enthusiasm, and in fact it's quite unprecedented. No other global leader has ever held a big meeting at Madison Square Garden of this nature, and the it's a coming out party of sorts for the Indian American community. We've got the person who's in charge of security from the NYPD joining us here just above Times Square. We'll chat with him to understand the security dimensions, because remember, there are protest groups who've registered with the NYPD wanting to protest right outside Madison Square Garden when the Prime Minister is speaking inside. These are protesters who are aghast and angry with Modi's post-Godhra track record. What will the organizers do to deal with them? We'll focus on that in just a moment, but first up, let's take you through the preparations that have been made in the big build-up to the Modi visit and all the meetings that Modi will be doing over the 100 hours that he's in New York and Washington, D.C.
The countdown to Prime Minister's landmark US visit has begun. The world will be watching as the Indian Prime Minister meets the American President. Narendra Modi's 4-day US trip will begin with a visit to the 9/11 Memorial on 27 September. He will also address the United Nations General Assembly on the same day. Bilateral meetings with Bangladesh, Nepal and Sri Lanka are also on the cards, what doesn't figure on the Prime Minister's elaborate list of engagements is a meeting with his Pakistani counterpart Nawaz Sharif.
In keeping with his policy of neighbours first, Prime Minister will be meeting 3 of our neighbours. These are the President of Sri Lanka, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, and the Prime Minister of Nepal.
On 28 September, the Prime Minister will address a massive gathering at New York City's Madison Square Garden. Narendra Modi's address is expected to draw a crowd of more than 18,000 people, and thousands more are likely to throng New York's Times Square to watch the address that will be beamed live on giant screens.
We have been way overbooked. The demand was for almost 40,000 seats, and it is still coming. We closed down on 7th of September, taking the registrations for individuals, and we still keep on getting so much of emails and communication that they want to come. That's why we made a backup arrangement that let's broadcast his speech live on Times Square.
Prime Minister Modi means business with his maiden US trip. He will have a power-packed breakfast with business leaders on 29 September, where he will try and restore their faith in the Indian growth story. It's also the day when he will meet former US President Bill Clinton, and he will end the day with a private dinner with the Obamas at the White House. The all-important meeting for the US President is scheduled for 30th September. Apart from large-scale investment, the Prime Minister will be looking for critical technology for defense and aerospace, energy cooperation and partnership in fighting global terror. The big question is, will there be more substance to the much-hyped visit than just symbolism? With Rahul Kaval in New York, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
So on the one side, you'll have Prime Minister Modi making this huge speech at Madison Square Garden, and you'll have 2 protest groups at least who've already registered with the NYPD to make their voice heard against Prime Minister Modi's track record on human rights. Joining us now is Srujal Parak. He's with the NYPD Police Department. He is the person who's in charge of security arrangements for Prime Minister Modi's big event at Madison Square Garden. Tell us specifically about the protests that these 2 groups have registered for, and how do you plan to deal with them?
They have registered 2 protests we have already received from NYPD, and we are like very peacefully protest. I mean, we want to tackle them very peacefully. You know, we have the marching band. We're going to be performing. We will have peaceful protest against them with the placard, "Welcome Modi ji." So we are not. So
when the protesters will be protesting, you will have a band marching right in front of them, holding placards supporting Modi.
No, we have the placard with the people who will be supporting Welcome Modi ji in New York, and this is it's a very incredible event, and you will receive people who are not agree with that Modi ji. You know, we expecting this is very normal, but in the enthusiasm and expectation from a lot of Indian American living in United States, they are so overwhelmed. They are so pumped up to be a part of this historic event.
So on the one side, Rajdeep, you've got a majority of the Indian American community very pumped up. There's also the reality that Modi's track record on human rights still rankles a few, and they'll be out protesting very close to Madison Square Garden on an avenue leading up to the Madison Square Garden arena when Modi is speaking. Do you think at any level, Rajdeep, that would mar the festivities around the big Madison Square Garden event, or will it be a non-starter, just something happening on the side which nobody really pays much attention to?
You know, that's interesting, Rahul, because someone just sent me an email, and this is a chain email going on by the anti-Modi lobby, which is saying that the entire television media has been hijacked by pro-Modi supporters. They're only showing pro-Modi voices. Where are the anti-Modi voices which had campaigned to prevent him from getting a visa for over a decade? But I think the balance of power has clearly shifted there. Now that Mr. Modi is the Prime Minister of the country, I don't think somehow the anti-Modi protesters will have the kind of resonance that they had just a couple of years ago. I think the world has changed. Let me get a quick response to that, Rahul, before I come back to you from Shashi Tharoor. You know, the world has changed. This is a city where you have protesters on every issue. There are some groups which are still protesting Mr. Modi's visit, but would you concede that the overwhelming number of NRIs and of Indian Americans are out there to welcome an Indian Prime Minister, someone who has deeply connected with them over the last couple of years?
Well, look, I've only got here, so I can't say I've spoken to enough people. I'm actually going to be addressing some of Mr. Modi's critics this evening when I speak to the gathering of the Indian National Overseas Congress. So maybe
there's an Indian National Overseas Congress still surviving?
It is, and it's got...
So it's not just the BJP, friends of BJP overseas.
It's going to be a good crowd, I'm told, despite the weather. But having said that, as a general proposition, and having been an NRI for 18 years or longer, here, I've always had the feeling that when a national leader comes of any party, we all, as NRIs, would rally behind him, and that's normal. Frankly, when I, as an opposition politician, come abroad, I leave most of my political differences with Mr. Modi back at home, because here he represents our country, he represents the future of India, and we should, as far as possible, wish him success.
Some will call it long-distance nationalism. It's nice to live in New York and believe you're truly nationalist, and you know that you're looking at, you know, you're out there. That's what I find on the internet often. I mean, the long-distance nationalism of people who are now welcoming Narendra Modi here in New York. Do you believe that there's that national spirit which Modi is very astute in invoking?
There's also long-distance extremism from the comfort of the couch in Westchester or whatever. I mean, a lot of the hate stuff that I get is actually from locations in this country, on Twitter and other social media. So there is all of that. People, when they're far away from India, have the luxury of being able to spout without having to do anything about it. But it doesn't matter. Now we have come to them. They will welcome us here, and they'll welcome the Prime Minister, I'm sure, as their Prime Minister.
Long-distance nationalism or long-distance extremism?
Well, I think it's long-distance nationalism, which will be there always. But the key thing is, there is a perception change which has come about India under Modi ji. And these NRIs here are looking forward of supporting Modi ji's vision and idea back home. So I think criticism is welcome in democracy, but overall criticism will not be there. There will be few points here and there, but at the end of the day, I think that even the American investors, I'll just add here. You see, for example, I just want to give it a little example. The US state, they hold on to the technology transfers on, let's say, defense. But there are a host of them, like Westinghouse, GE and all, they're also driving and they're pushing their government that, look, don't hold on to this transfer technology, but allow us to go to India. So there will be enough pressure, even on the FDI being 49%, a lot of being spoken, but I feel overall the business is going to happen.
I want to come back to the Indian Americans and what's happening there on the ground, because Rahul, as you can see, even Shashi Tharoor is here to welcome the Prime Minister. He's addressing the Indian Overseas Congress group. I thought it was almost reaching near extinction, but he says there will be a big gathering there, but certainly nothing like what we're going to see in Madison Square Garden. And you've been traveling to Jackson Heights, and I believe every non-resident Gujarati wants a ticket to that big function on Sunday. Rajdeep, it's not just the non-resident Gujaratis, it is the non-resident Indians. Whether they are Hyderabadis, they are Bengalis or they are Punjabis, they're as excited. Yes, of course, because Modi is a Gujarati, because the Gujarati community here is as strong as it is, there is a huge amount of interest. But this interest goes way beyond just the non-resident Gujaratis. Modi is for them an icon of the sorts they haven't seen, at least as far as Indian politics is concerned. His popularity at this time excels that of Amitabh Bachchan or Shah Rukh Khan by far. Joining us now are two people who represent two different sides of the overseas Indian political perspective. Junaid Khan with the Overseas Friends of Congress, and we've got Atma Singh from the Overseas Friends of BJP. Mr. Junaid Khan, it seems you're fighting a losing battle here in New York. Atma Singh and all the people from the Friends of BJP are walking all over the Congress. They've taken over Times Square, Madison Square Garden, New Jersey. It seems Modi is huge over here.
Just Rahul, just a community event. I don't feel that PM of the country who get the red carpet like Manmohan Singh always get and whoever the Prime Minister before. But right now what I see, it's just community welcome for Modi. I mean, a lot of Gujarati friends are here and they're promoting Modi for a long time. But it don't look that, you know, it's a country representation. It's just a community representation.
Is that fair criticism? He says it's only a community representation, mostly Gujaratis. It's not a pan-India, pan-Indian community event.
I
or
don't.
a pan-American event?
I'm not agree with him. You know, like a Congress have every time this kind divide and rules policy, and they try to divide the Indian community in a Punjabi and Gujarati. I think this is Indian community event, and all people are very excited. Doesn't matter American, Indians, and another country people. They want to come on this event too. Even the lot of government official, elected official, like yesterday I'm talking to Upender Chivkula ji, and he don't get the ticket. He's an assemblyman for 17 years, and he's from South India. So I'm not agree with this.
Okay. The Congress and the BJP, of course, divided on whether or not Modi is captivated pan-America interest, pan-Indian American interest, or only pan-Indian American Gujarati interest. Well, the verdict out on the street is that Times Square is virtually being taken over by the Indian community in a way that's probably never happened. People coming to see which are the screens, they're coming and asking us, Rajdeep, which are the screens where Modi's speech is going to come live? What time should we come? Where can I stand? That's the level of excitement. It's almost as if you've got a rock star at the peak of his prowess who will be holding this massive concert. Everybody wants to find some way of getting a leg in.
Yeah. Welcome back to this Headlines Today special coming to you from New York, just ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the Big Apple. Mission America, Modi's Mission America. Now he's meeting a number of leaders. We are in fact being told that Sushma Swaraj, who's already in New York, is meeting with the Chinese foreign minister as we speak. The big question is, will Mr. Modi meet Nawaz Sharif, who's already arrived in New York and delivers his speech at the UN General Assembly? Should he be meeting Nawaz Sharif? Shashi Tharoor, should the Indian Prime Minister meet Nawaz Sharif? Or will that detract from the focus of the visit, which is a feel-good visit reaching out to America?
Exactly. A, it'll distract from the focus of the visit. B, it'll send a confused signal about the earlier cancellation. C, it'll raise the question of whether this is an adequately prepared visit, whether there are any clear objectives. I think that we should now reserve another summit-level interaction for more propitious circumstances, and Mr. Modi has enough world leaders who need his time. He's apparently got 50 engagements already. He doesn't need a 51st.
So he doesn't need the Prime Minister of Pakistan, unlike Manmohan Singh, who met him last year here in New York. But Siddharth Nath Singh, do you believe that Mr. Modi should use this visit to focus on America for once and not worry about Pakistan?
I think that's exactly what's happening. There is no meeting slated with Nawaz Sharif, and definitely the focus is the Americans, American businessmen, developing a relationship with Obama and then taking things forward, be it on terrorism, maritime security, and definitely
does Mr. Modi still carry the hurt of not having got a visa from the Americans for 10 years? So. Do you believe somewhere there's a deep sense of hurt?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Because informally also I've, he has said that these small things for individuals, they may matter, but not for the country, and we all need to move forward.
Shouldn't raise it at all in this visit. Keep it away.
No, that's all.
It's all in the past.
That's all history now, and in fact it will be awkward for him to raise it. Why should he raise it? If anything, they might want to say something about it, but I don't think they will. I think that's history now. Look, this is the week of Mangalyaan. We are on top of the world. We are in Mars. We have made it in India, by the way, Mangalyaan, and we should be doing more Make in India and revealing India to the world. It's a great accomplishment of India, not of any particular party or government, of India.
Unlike what
the good story the good story the PM can sell.
Okay, a good story that India can sell is Mangalayam. There's much to celebrate this week in India, and Rahul, I believe at Columbia University, the mood among the Indian students reflects this sort of upbeat, positive mood, a feel-good factor there in Columbia University among the Indian students.
Yes, Rajdeep, we were at the engineering school at Columbia University last evening, and I experienced something quite unbelievable. Several of these students, and remember, generations of Indian students have come, studied in America, settled over here, and really helped build and shape the American economy. These students said that when they came to India a couple of years ago, they came to America a couple of years ago, they wanted to stay here, live here, work here. But now that Modi is talking about Make in India, they feel inspired, and in fact, they want to come back and work in India. They want to get their hands dirty and start making in India. And that's really quite remarkable, because most of them are very career-minded, very focused, very ambitious, very financially driven, and they believe that the honeypot is in India, and they want to go and suck the nectar, and they want to be a part of the India story. Here's our open house shot at the renowned Columbia University in New York. Huge amount of interest amongst the Indian American community out in the street. But currently we're at a classroom at one of the world's best universities. This is Columbia University the engineering school, and we've got a whole bunch of students and professors with us. Let's find out what these students, some of the sharpest minds studying and teaching at Columbia, make of Prime Minister Modi's first big visit to the United States. Thank you all so much for joining us at Columbia University and allowing us into your classroom. Really appreciate this. I want to begin by asking, how many of you will be attending Prime Minister Modi's public event at Madison Square Garden? Wow. Is there anyone who's not going? That's pretty much the entire classroom. You're not, just a handful of people not going, but about 80-90% of this classroom going for the Madison Square Garden event. Why is it that you're excited, and why is it that you want to take time out of your classrooms and go and see what the Prime Minister is saying?
I've only heard about how charismatic he is, what a resonant speaker he is, and how he inspires masses. I think this will be the first time I'll actually be part of one of his amazing speeches. So I'm really, really excited.
Have you followed the Prime... If you all could just give me a quick introduction about who you are, where you study, which class. Have you followed the Prime Minister's political journey, and why is it that you want to be at Madison Square Garden when he speaks?
Hi, I'm Beena. I'm an urban design student here. I'm really amazed by his 100 Smart Cities plan, and I think I want to go there to hear more about it.
Okay, who else is going to be there at Madison Square Garden when the Prime Minister is speaking? Why do you want to listen to Modi?
I'm Jaskaran and I am studying public administration. So this is my second year over here, and the elections typically happened in May, and that is when I was in USA. I was very excited about regime change that was much predictable after the public response, and I missed being a part of the Indian election. So it's a great event with Modi for the coming to the US for the first time, and I would like to see what kind of a response he gets in the US.
I was in New Jersey in one of the suburbs recently, and somebody joked over there, if Modi were to stand for elections in Jersey, he might actually win. Just the number of Indians who stay there. But what, in your view, makes Modi different from other Indian politicians, and why are you keen on listening to Modi?
I think after Modi has come to power, the kind of positivity that's around, like even he focuses on very small micro and macro issues. I think that is what is like mainly driving popularity between public of Modi.
What is it about Modi that you're suspicious or doubtful about?
One thing that you asked was that why am I interested in attending his speech, and I think there are two major...
So you don't like him, but you'll still go?
Yeah, I'm definitely going. It's a big moment that India's Prime Minister is here after such a long time. The two reasons I was mainly interested in going for the speech was, A, it's going to be very historic that after almost a decade of being denied to come to the United States, he's coming here. So I'm interested to see if he'll make a remark about that in the speech itself, and how he'll include that part, that why wasn't he here, and if he'll address that elephant in the room. And secondly, the other part is that Modi knows, as well as his team does, that he is internationally very criticized for his past roles in the Gujarat riots. So I want to see if he's gonna appease the American crowd here at Madison Square Garden, and if he's going to address that, and if he's going to address his criticism.
This gentleman had also put up his hand when we asked for who the Modi skeptics were. Why is it that you're skeptical about Modi?
Hi, I'm Vijay Ramesh. I'm a student, I'm a master's student at the Department of Ecology and Environmental Sciences. So firstly, when I voted for Modi, and I expected him to do a lot for the country, but he has let me down personally, because of the number of environmental clearances which are increasing at a rapid rate today, without even considering the actual ecological scenario on the field, on the ground. As a field biologist, I know that since Modi has always been for pro-development, it shouldn't be a debate about development versus environment. There should be a solution so that it shouldn't just go towards one section alone. For example, the clearance given for the Nakondam Island, where the Coast Guard wants to build a radar station there. There's absolutely no necessity to build a radar station there. That island
But the Chinese are building so many radar stations in the same region, and you want to have your guard up, don't you?
But the Chinese have submarines too. We can have submarines and still keep watch. This island has a unique species of hornbills which is not present anywhere else in the world. If you build a radar station there, you're going to ensure that this hornbill goes extinct in the coming years. And I seriously think that something needs to be done to stop these environmental clearances going at a rapid rate. You need to have a lot of people look at the environmental clearances, and not just people at the Ministry of Environment and Forests.
Vishal, this is criticism that's thrown at Modi often, that because he's so pro-business, several files that were earlier pending, even inside very ecologically sensitive zones, are suddenly being cleared that this might be great for corporate India, but is really bad for India's ecology. Those were students at Columbia University, very excited. The Indian-American community very clearly very enthusiastic about Modi's presence. But what's the mood amongst the congressmen and the senators, the real levers of power in the United States? Joining us now is political strategist, works very closely on Capitol Hill with several of these congressmen and senators, Punita Ahluwalia. Welcome to our special broadcast. Now, we're in the middle of election season in the US. While the Indian community is very rah-rah Modi, there are several leaders here, world leaders for the United Nations General Assembly. Obama's got his mind on Syria and the ISIL. Is America as excited as India is?
Definitely. If you have seen the interviews and the writings, both from Senator McCain and with the Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Ed Royce, they're all very excited about this alliance, and it's basically a great opportunity for both nations to wipe the slate clean and start fresh. I think it'll be most important how President Obama and Prime Minister Modi have a free conversation, free talk, get to know each other. And as you know, the United States really work on relationships. The relationship between the BJP and Clinton administration, along with President Bush, with Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, along with the other senior ministers of the cabinet, on both sides worked effectively, aggressively to build this relationship and this partnership.
No, but the reality is Modi comes to the United States at a time when Obama is entering the lame duck phase of his presidency. Now that's a big problem as well, because Obama is no longer as powerful as he was, say, 6 years ago, and Modi is coming in at a time when he's at the peak of his game.
But that's where the charismatic Prime Minister Modi comes into play, and he has a very defined vision, what I understand. And I've been watching him very closely, and I understand he would be able, he's come here with certain deliverables in his mind and expectations. And I think it all goes on the leadership on both countries, even though President Obama is in a lame duck session. But there are other leadership on the Senate. It's a bipartisan support for this relationship. But it's most important for both sides to define what the strategic partnership is going to be all about.
But the reality about India-America is that for the last couple of years, ties between India and America have gone into no man's land. Yes. Given the fact that Obama is towards the end of his presidency, given the fact that there's an election season on right now, will Modi be able to pump fresh life into this relationship?
Oh, definitely, because you see, we have a separate free market philosophy. And if Prime Minister Modi is able to woo the public and the free market, there is no reason why U.S. large entrepreneur companies and foreign direct investments flow into India. So I think the defense sector is a huge opportunity, the energy sector is a huge opportunity, and I think these are all has to be done. It all depends on how Prime Minister Modi and President Obama are able to find tangible discussion. But more important is that synergy has to be built.
Okay, let me also bring in headlines today's Strategic Affairs editor Gaurav Sawant, who's been speaking to sources in the Prime Minister's office on the message that Modi carries to Washington, because on the one side you've got the optics of Madison Square Garden, his speech at the UNGA, but the real business part of this relationship will be in Washington. What will Modi tell Obama? What do you know?
From what my sources are telling me, there are two very important aspects to this visit. The first is Prime Minister Modi interacting with business heads and CEOs in New York. He's meeting 17 CEOs, and that's big business that he's talking about. So Prime Minister Modi brings in wants big business to come to India, invest in India, and the message that he carries to them is whatever money you make in the US, you get your returns, let's say in 10 years, invest that money in India, you will get your returns in 2 years. So that big business, clean energy, defense, technology that's been denied so far, that's one part of the story. When he goes to Washington, D.C., it's the biggest and the oldest democracies of the world working together for the betterment of the world, India reclaiming its place in the world, and that's where that critical technology that was denied to India in the past, you know, Obama and Modi come together to chart out a new course for the future.
Okay, this is interesting. It's big and it's exciting. Now, what remains to be seen is how much of this intent can translate into action. What we'll do now is play out excerpts from an exclusive interview I did with the first Miss America of Indian origin, Nina Davuluri. I caught up with her near Times Square. She's going to be the master of ceremonies for the big event at the Madison Square Garden. She's an American icon. She won just last year, hugely popular, especially amongst the Indian American community because of their dark skin. They haven't ever had the sort of prominence that they do now, thanks to Nina Davuluri, who's really taken India America and Indian American girls and Indian American youngsters from the periphery to the center stage of American society. She's super excited about being on the same stage as President Modi. So here is Nina Davuluri, first Miss America of Indian origin, speaking exclusively to Headline. Nina Davuluri is a Miss America and is very popular here with the Indian American community. You're going to be the MC for this program. Why did you decide to sign up and are you excited?
Well, I didn't sign up. I was very honored to actually be asked to do this, and I'm just so honored because I think this really goes to show the strengthening of the ties between the U.S. and India, and I'm really proud to represent both sides.
In some senses, this is being thought of as a coming out party for the Indian American community, as one of the more prominent faces of the Indian American community. What does Prime Minister Modi's event at Madison Square Garden mean to you?
Well, I think this is the first time that such a reception is even being held. And the fact that it's sold out at Madison Square Garden, the fact that there are, hundreds of college students on campuses hosting events at their venues for watch parties for this, I think it really goes to show how well he's being received.
Do you follow any Indian politics at all? What do you make of Narendra Modi and his achievement coming from a railway station selling tea to being the Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy?
I think in some sense it's also that spirit of the American dream that, I know for myself is that many of us come to this country in hopes of that American dream and that American spirit, that regardless of your race, your gender, your socioeconomic status, that anyone can become what they want to be. And I think he is a testament to that, and I think a lot of people resonate with that, especially my generation and younger and even older.
A very charged up Miss America. She will of course be at the stage with Prime Minister Modi come Sunday. And Rajdeep, the excitement is quite unprecedented. Have you ever seen something like this in all your travels across the world? An Indian Prime Minister being able to enthuse Indian Americans to this extent, and what do you make of the kind of popularity that Modi seems to enjoy amongst Indians here?
Rahul, times have changed, and let me tell you how they've changed. I was here in 2000 with Atal Bihari Vajpayee when he came here on a similar visit, and Mr. Vajpayee went to Staten Island where he made his famous speech saying that I am always and I am a Swayam Sevak and always will be. It was a gathering of Hindu sons and sadhus and other NRIs who had gathered there. And interestingly, someone who came to meet the Prime Minister there was a certain Mr. Narendra Modi, who had spent much of the summer of 2000 here in New York because he had been virtually exiled by the BJP for allegedly promoting faction fighting in Himachal and Haryana, two of the states that he was in charge. That was 14 years ago, and Mr. Vajpayee told Mr. Modi then, "Chaliye, ab time aa gaya hai वापस India aane." That was 14 years ago when he spent a few months here in New York. Now, as you rightly said, Modi is the toast of the town. 14 years, the world has changed. Modi today is the toast of the town. And that perhaps reflects how politics in India has changed over the last 14 years. But let me ask you, Shashi, that how are you going to view this visit as a success? What will it require for Narendra Modi to claim success? Is it enough for the NRIs to congregate in their large numbers at Madison Square Gardens? Or is the real success of this visit going to be judged in Washington and not here in New York?
Exactly, Rajdeep. We are feeling a bit celebratory because he's a toast of the town for Indians here. But if you watch the news for the last hour or two in any American channel, he's not even mentioned. The fact is, we have not yet impinged on the consciousness of America yet. A successful visit by our Prime Minister will raise the profile, but a successful visit must be defined in terms of a new vision for a strategic partnership with America that means something, that is not merely a laundry list of small bits and pieces here and there, that actually explains to America why it's in their interest to be with us and to invest in us, and at the same time carries a story back to the Indian people as to why this relationship benefits India. That kind of vision I don't really see enough of yet. But we haven't yet heard from the Prime Minister in Washington and New York, so perhaps it'll come.
So the performance at Madison Square Gardens won't make the front page of the New York Times. That's what you're saying.
Well, it may make...
It'll be all over the Indian papers, exactly, all over the Indian channels, but at the end of the day, it will require something more to impinge the American consciousness, is it?
Right. Well, look, it's an unusual event. I'm sure they'll pay attention to the fact that here you have a foreign prime minister commanding an audience of 20,000 people in New York. That's obviously an impressive thing. But the truth is that this is not what the relationship's about. It's a great thing for Mr. Modi. It's a great thing for the Indian community here. But there's got to be something substantive in Washington that will make the Indo-US relationship substantive.
Rajiv, certainly the way his visit is and the Madison Square, his public rally, he is certainly a rock star here in America, and you speak to anyone, a lot of people know what's happening.
He's a rock star with Indians in America.
Well, maybe you haven't interacted, I haven't interacted with many, but what I understand, when I checked into the hotel, he looked at me and said, "Oh, you're here for Modi's visit," and that wasn't certainly an Indian.
So you believe Modi can make it to the front page of the New York Times? I mean, that's critical. You see, you've got to start making the front page of the New York Times.
He will. And let me also add, the big takeaway will be the areas where US and India converge together. It's not necessarily that those ticklish things needs to be sorted out, but the conversion can be on many things. One, terrorism on a larger canvas. Second, there will be an aspiring or aggressive, I would say, Asian neighborhood. Then third is the maritime security, and the fourth is always going to be economics play a major role between India and US, and US will not get any better opportunity but under Narendra Modi to do business in India, because he has a good track record, and I'm sure he's going to work towards it so that he eases the business
and he's got, as Rahul just showed, the first Miss America of Indian origin doing the emceeing at the function. Shashi Tharoor, you're at the wrong spot. It didn't happen when your Prime Minister was there. I couldn't imagine her being an MC, and I couldn't imagine Manmohan Singh being at Madison Square Garden in the first place. So there's a shift.
Manmohan Singh actually did have a reception at Madison Square Garden, but in a smaller portion of the arena. And there hadn't yet been an Indian Miss America, so she couldn't have emceed for Manmohan Singh. However, having said that, it's good that, this is if something that will help increase the visibility and profile of the visit of our Prime Minister and of this wonderful Indian American lady. I'm happy for all of them.
But let me ask you in conclusion, the Indian Americans in general, or the NRIs, do you believe this is, just as it is a coming out party for Mr. Modi in a way, it's also a coming of age for them? That they, for much too long, they've been they've felt at the margins in a sense of American society. Yes, you've got your doctors, but they've never really been fully acknowledged. Do you believe that's important for an Indian Prime Minister to do? And that's to the credit of Mr. Modi again.
I don't buy that at all, right?
You don't buy it at all?
First of all, they've been extremely influential not only in American society, but in American politics. We've got two governors of Indian American origin. We've had a congressman of Indian American origin. We've got Indians coming out of the years of everybody in the administration in half a dozen extremely senior positions at a relatively young age, all of them. So I think that there is no question that you can imply that Indian Americans haven't arrived. They've arrived for the last 2 decades.
Okay, so they arrived well before Narendra Modi arrives here in New York. But Mr. Modi, no, I've run completely out of time, Siddharth. Siddharth Singh, Shashi Tharoor from a rather cool late autumn morning here in New York. It's been great here. And Rahul, you've been out then, you get the best job because you get to interview Miss America, while I get to interview Shashi Tharoor and Siddharth Singh. Such are the ways of the world. Thank you all very much for watching this special on Headlines today. Modi's Mission America. We'll have plenty more in the days ahead as Mr. Modi finally arrives here more than a decade since his last visit. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
So we could have said...